but the French president made it clear differences remained. A member of Iraq's governing council has been shot and wounded outside her home in Baghdad.
In sport, Chelsea are top of the Premiership after an emphatic display at Wolves. They needed 4 goals, they got 5. Hernan Crespo scoring twice. There's a lifeline for Britain in the Davis Cup. Tim Henman and Greg Wozecki won the doubles against Morocco. They still have to win both singles, though. And South Africa's cricketers have pulled out of their tour to Pakistan due to start next week. They've cancelled the tour due to Friday's bomb blast in Karachi. There you go. We'll have more sport for you in 15 minutes. To see you then.
Sonia, we can't wait. The Welsh Nationalist Party, Plaid Cymru, has voted to try to gain Mostyn. I'm joined now from Downing Street by our correspondent, Clarence Mitchell. Clarence, can you tell us anything more about the announcement itself?
About the announcement itself, no, at this stage, Peter. It's only just been made, and I'm sure more details will emerge about the circumstances of Lord Williams's death at the relatively early age of 62. I can tell you that earlier this afternoon, Tony Blair arrived back at Northolt, RAF Northolt, just to the west of London. He had, of course, just come back from his meeting with Chancellor Schroeder and Jacques Chirac in Berlin, and the media had been told that he might make a short statement on his arrival, and in fact cameras were there ready for that, but one of his officials then told the media that Mr. Blair would not be making a statement, and the reasons for that would come out in due course. We were also then later told that Mr. Blair had been affected by what was described as a personal sad tragedy, and that somebody of political significance had indeed died at a relatively early age. At that stage we didn't know who it was, but of course this statement has now made it clear that it was indeed Lord Williams of Mostyn, the leader of the House of Lords.
So presumably at some stage there'll be a further announcement from Downing Street from Tony Blair himself in tribute to his leader.
Indeed, I'm quite sure that will be the case. It would appear that Mr. Blair has not come back here to Downing Street. He had been expected to, but his vehicles and his convoy has not been seen here since he arrived at Northolt. But you're right, yes, Lord Williams would have been one of his most trusted aides within the House of Lords. I can tell you a little bit about his career. He was appointed as leader of the Lords back in June of 2001. Before that, he'd been Attorney General, and prior to that, he'd been Minister of State at the Home Office, as well as opposition spokesman for legal affairs and Northern Ireland before that. So quite a long, illustrious political career at the junior ministerial levels in many ways. But clearly, this death has come as a shock, not only to Lord Williams's family, of course, but to Mr. Blair, and it was made pretty clear that Tony Blair did not want to say anything initially. It seems that he had only been given the news himself just moments, perhaps even as he arrived back in Britain. The precise timing will become clear. But yes, for now, Downing Street aren't saying anything further than to confirm the basic facts that Lord Williams has died.
Clarence, thank you. Well, I'm a step ahead of Clarence because while he was speaking, Prime Minister Tony Blair issued a statement paying tribute to his cabinet colleague, Lord Williams of Mostyn, saying, "I am profoundly shocked and saddened by the sudden death of Gareth Williams. He was a fine politician with excellent judgment who earned the respects of colleagues of all parties." Tony Blair's tribute, issued by Number 10 in the last few seconds, to Lord Williams of Mostyn, the leader of the House of Lords, who died earlier today at the age of 62. I'm joined in the studio now by our political correspondent, Reeta Chakrabarti. What sort of a loss is that of Gareth Williams?
I think it is quite a loss to Tony Blair. That's fairly obvious from the way in which he reacted to the news. Clearly, personally, very upset. He's somebody who he will have known well, partly because they moved in the same circles. The Prime Minister is, of course, a barrister. Lord Williams of Mostyn himself trained as a barrister. He was called to the bar in 1965. He became a QC and then a part-time judge. So there'll have been kindred spirits in that sense. And he played a role within government really since the the 1990s, occupying various positions within the Home Office, the Northern Ireland Office. He was Attorney General, then of course latterly the leader of the House of Lords. So I think this clearly has touched the Prime Minister in a personal sense, and also of course in a political one.
Well, some of Tony Blair's most trusted friends are in that legal coterie. Was Gareth Williams among them?
Yes, I think he was. He wasn't somebody who was as close to him as, say, Lord Faulkner or Derry Irvine, but he was somebody who was clearly quite close to him. I can tell you a little bit more about the statement that has been issued by Downing Street, which I think gives you a bit more of a sense of quite how important he was to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has described him as a superb and entertaining speaker who used wit and gentle humour time and time again to diffuse difficult situations in the House of Lords. And I think that there is some feeling behind that statement, because the Prime Minister, the government, has of course time and time again had difficulties within the House of Lords in terms of pushing through contentious legislation. Clearly Lord Williams had been of great use to him politically in those situations. Described him as a generous man who sparked huge affection in all who knew him, a politician at the height of his powers, and the Prime Minister ended by saying that his thoughts were with his family.
Those sort of qualities which Tony Blair refers to, they're going to be missed, aren't they? Because the House of Lords was not in its usual generous form to each other when the government's plans were unveiled late last week. They really do need now, on the government on the front bench in the House of Lords, someone like him. Somebody
with those diplomatic skills, and I think that ability, as Downing Street said there, to diffuse situations. We've seen so often that the House of Lords is the place where legislation becomes stuck, if you like, and where you do need somebody who can diffuse the situation, who can oil the wheels, if you like. And clearly Lord Williams was the person for the Prime Minister, and he will be missed.
Gosh, how the landscape suddenly has started to change for Tony Blair. Trusted people going.
Indeed, indeed, yes. It's been said in the past it's been because of resignations, reshuffles, political pressure, Alistair Campbell, and this, however, a tragedy, unforeseen.
Reeta Chakrabarti, thank you. President Clinton has opened a memorial for the victims of the Srebrenica massacre in Bosnia in 1995. 7,000 Muslims were killed when Bosnian Serb militia captured the town. President Clinton called for those responsible to be caught and brought to justice.
Bosnia today. Chilling, isn't it, how a country so beautiful could be witness to such evil?
I'm joined now on the line by the Rural Affairs Minister, Alun Michael, who served with Lord Williams at the Home Office. Alun Michael, how do you react to Gareth Williams' death?
As everybody who knew him will be, absolutely devastated. Gareth was one of a rare breed of people. He combined intelligence, a very sharp legal mind, inventiveness. He could always look his way round problems, and being one of the kindest and gentlest men I've ever known. I think everybody who knew him will be absolutely devastated.
And he was only 62. Was it totally unexpected?
I think it was totally out of the blue. I know of no suggestion anywhere that there was any problem. It seems to have been very quick from what I hear. Obviously, like all his friends, I've only just heard the news. I'm shattered by it, but it's a great loss to the country as a whole. He brought great wisdom to the House of Lords, and he was one of those people who, in incisive argument, could always win people over or win the respect of those who didn't agree with him. He was a man of immense talent, but as I say, the most obvious characteristic about him was his gentleness and his kindness.
How much was the government hoping to rely on him in the months ahead when the House of Lords is going to go through a pretty turbulent time?
Well, I think he's somebody that everybody relied on in every set of circumstances. I remember when we were in opposition, if we were dealing with a criminal justice legislation, you just immediately turn to Gareth, and the most complicated things would unravel under his incisive gaze. I think most people will remember his niceness and the fact that, as I say, he could calm down situations. There are many others who have that talent in the House of Lords on the Labour benches, but I think few people that had such a combination of talent and niceness as Gareth did.
Alun Michael, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Alun Michael, the Rural Affairs Minister, on the death of his friend Lord Williams of Mostyn, who died earlier today at the age of 62. Well, those are the latest news headlines. Now, here's Sonia McLaughlin with a full roundup of all the day's sports.